Hello everyone, welcome to the special edition of ET News. I am Dejan Jackson, and for Hispanic Heritage Month, we have in studio Ms. Beatriz Lebron. She is a Board of Education Commissioner, and she'll be talking about her job and her role as Board of Education Commissioner. Welcome, Ms. Lebron. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. First, I want to ask, what is your role as Board of Education Commissioner? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so the Board of Education is an elected seat in Monroe County. It does differ from state to state. I'll give an example. Chicago is an appointed board, so the mayor always appoints those board members. But here in Monroe County and in Rochester, you have to run for office, you have to knock on doors, you have to convince thousands of people that you want to represent their voice on the school board. And the school board is responsible for the policies within a district, the governance structure, supervising and hiring the superintendent, who is the supervisor for everybody, and then also finances. We create the budget along with the superintendent, and we make sure that the money is handled correctly.
Do you feel like that was was it hard to get there?
So in Monroe County and in politics in general, there's a pecking order of who's up next. And so for me, I ran for office out of my experience working within the district and seeing a lot of things that I did not agree with. And so I left the Rochester City School District and then went to work for Rochester Regional Health and then figured out how to run for office. And so that's essentially how I got onto the school board. But I ended up I lost my first election by 2% because you can lose. Every vote matters, especially local elections, especially Monroe County. I know lots of people who have ran races and have won by 6 votes only. And so I was appointed to Malik Evans' seat because he ran for city council before he ran for mayor. And I had to run again. Again, to keep this seat, so I am one of the few elected officials who had to run 3 years in a row just to serve 4 years. And then I just finished my last election for school board this school year, so I just got reelected for another 4 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How do if I wanted to go vote, or whoever wanted to go vote, how do we do that? How do we go about that?
So you have to register to vote, but there was a new law that was passed in the last 2 years where you can start pre-registering to vote as early as 16 through the Board of Elections. Our Board of Elections is located at 39 West Main Street, right downtown. And folks can go on there to register to vote. You can also go to the Board of Elections website and pull down the voter registration or the pre-voter registration and submit it to the Board of Elections.
All right, thank you. For people that don't know, it seems like it has been a long journey for you. You know, it seems like a hard path, like you said. What do you feel like you had to overcome as an adult or child? Like, is your biggest accomplishment or a biggest roadblock you had to overcome?
That's a great question. I think I've had an unfortunate but fortunate life, and I say that my childhood was not an easy childhood. I had to endure a lot of trauma, and I had to navigate without enough skills, language, and education, quite frankly, to get to where I'm at. But I think the biggest challenges for me was feeling like I wanted success, but not knowing how to get there. And that feeling left me oftentimes, especially when I was a teenager, it left me feeling hopeless, like I didn't know how I was ever gonna get out of poverty, how I was ever gonna get out the Bronx, how I was ever gonna really have a different life. I just didn't know how to get there. And then I was a teen mom. Right. And so now I had another person that I had to be responsible for as I myself was still lost. And I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was navigating that space and learning how to overcome obstacles and keep things moving. No matter what happened, just keep moving.
All right. Speaking of you growing up in the teenage years, what was it like growing up in a Hispanic culture?
Yeah, so that's a great question too. I think it is a different experience for a lot of people, even though culturally we share a lot of the same views and values, food, music, things like that. My family is Afro-Latino, and when I came to Rochester, that was not something very vocalized here, and there was a lot of segregation here. So I experienced culture shock moving to Rochester and seeing that people very much so were divided in this community by geographics, where they live, where they kind of hung out at. That was not my experience in New York City. And so I grew up integrated both in Black and Latino culture. And this is my first time this year in particularly where I am being more vocal about that experience, because I realized that there is a lot of mixed and integrated individuals who have this shared culture, if you will. And in Rochester in particular, and I have to hone in so that the students who are listening understand that this is some uniqueness to being in Rochester, and that in the much larger world, people are more integrated, people are more open, and people have a larger understanding of what it's like to be a mixed individual. But this year in particular, I'm on this mission to educate people on Black history integrated into Latino culture. And I just did a workshop for the U of R, but I want to share this tidbit because in my research for this particular workshop, I learned that 15% more enslaved people were dropped off in Latin countries than in America. And a lot of Latinos in particular do not know their culture, their roots as it relates to Black history and that intersection. And so for me, I feel very fortunate that I had parents who had awareness and had a desire to make sure that me and all of my brothers and sisters, and there was 14 of us, y'all, that we understood, right, that we were both Latinx and that we were rooted in Black culture and Black history, and our ancestors were also Black. And so I will feel very fortunate because they ensured that we knew that history, that we knew how to speak Spanish, because that was important, particularly to my mom. And you know, there's lots of mixed children, even today, who don't know Spanish, including some of my own girls, because I did not do my due diligence. I didn't have the time. But now I'm on this mission, right, to like sit down with my kids and make sure that they do know. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can learn a second or third language. It does become more difficult as you get older, but you can still do it.
Right.
And so that's the mission that I'm on. But what I will say is there's a lot of beautiful things to both the Latino culture and to Black culture too.
All right, thank you. I really like
you.
that. Yeah. So talking about still talking about teenage years, what advice do you have for young people like myself, my friends, people around my age? You know, what do you have? What is advice?
Yeah, that this too shall pass. And that was a hard concept for me as a teenager to understand, because oftentimes when something happened that was either hard or sad or tragic or traumatizing, in that moment it felt like I was going to feel that pain forever. And the reality is that nothing lasts forever and everything changes. No matter how much you try to not want things to change, everything changes, good or bad, it will change. And so if you're having a downswing, it'll be a matter of time before you're back up again. And when you're having an upswing, just know that it's gonna you're gonna have a downswing. And that happens in teenage years, youth, and adult years, and seniors. But it'll pass.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in the studio today. I really like what you said.
Thank you.
I definitely love the advice. But that does it for this news episode, special edition of ET News. Thank you for watching. I'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.